Morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Happy Sunday. What an honor to be back with you guys again. L'chaim to those that are still in the middle of their morning coffee. One of the greatest, I think this is one of the greatest drinks that God gave us in this world is the morning coffee. Especially if you go closer to the world of black, which is a whole conversation into itself. How one drinks their coffee. I've got a lot of opinions on it, not for now. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. For those that are tuning in now live, thank you so much for being with me. For those that are watching this on demand on all the different platforms, thanks so much for tuning in. No matter what day you're listening to this, thanks so much for doing so. So this is a daily boost. We're trying to take a step every day in hopefully the right direction. Hopefully in a direction that brings us to really the essential self, to who we really could be with God's help. Last week was a week where we really spent a lot of time talking about really getting underneath this idea of challenge. Unless we live it and understand it, we'll try to avoid it. Challenge isn't a natural thing that we go towards. It's not chocolate. You don't really got to teach a kid to like chocolate. It's not an acquired taste. It's like the things that are just normal. There's always room for chocolate. But there are other things that you have to learn how to eat. Challenge is something that we naturally go towards because we're not programmed to go towards challenge. We're programmed to go from challenge. We are programmed to run from challenge, and that's because we were given this brain that is designed to survive. Greatness is a choice we have to make. That's what makes it great. It wouldn't be great if it were natural and normal to everybody. No one's like, wow, you ate 5 pounds of chocolate today? You're incredible. How did you do that? Because it's natural. I mean, you slept for 10, you sat on the couch, straight, and you didn't get up? Oh, wow. Nobody's doing that because things that are natural, they're not great. They're natural. But things that are more difficult, that you have to work towards, well, that's where greatness comes in. It's an option. You have to override the system. So to understand it, to get underneath it, to learn how to do it, that's really what we're talking about. And until we explore this area in a way that is exhaustive, we're not doing it justice. To get up and say, let's go do it, it doesn't really do it for people because we have to get underneath it. And last week we began the process of understanding what challenge is, of understanding what the value it brings to our lives, how it brings out our potential, how we have to lean into it. And one of the great challenges and why we don't do it is because we think when we should act and we act when we should think. We don't know how to cross over. We don't spend enough time thinking. So when it's time to act, we're still thinking. When you wake up in the morning and you're doing, by the time you get up in the morning, well, that's why when you're in the middle of doing, you're second guessing yourself because you haven't spent time thinking. When you go to bed at night and all that you're really doing is just ending your actions by sleeping, you're not introspecting on your day. You're not gaining from the insights that you learned along the way. That's why we keep on making the same mistakes. It's not because we don't get it. It's because we don't think about it. When you look at professional anything, whatever you see in the world that is professional, you're seeing two things. People that are working and challenging themselves all the time, they're not comfortable. And people that are preparing mentally and reviewing mentally. When I started doing radio years ago, I had the opportunity to speak to some really great people in business. And one thing that somebody said to me once, I'll never forget, He said that if you want to really grow in this field, you have to listen to every show you do. I'm thinking, are you out of your mind? I'm going to hear myself speak for an hour. I just said it. I'm going to hear it. And I resisted it for weeks. And then finally, I just bit the bullet. I'll never forget it. We taped the show. The show aired. And the next day, I downloaded it on my phone and I listened to it. I couldn't even believe it. But there's so many insights that I never would have thought because I didn't review it. Spend time thinking. And if you don't have time to think, why do you expect that you're going to become great? If your life isn't worth review, if algebra is worth preparing and reviewing, but your life isn't, then why would you think you're going to get an A in life? Would the kid think he's going to get an A in algebra by rolling into the test? Why would a person think they can get an A in life by rolling into life? This is a big deal in dating. For those of you that are listening to this that are dating, this is critical. People just roll into dates. Just roll in. Did you think about what you really are looking for in life? Did you afterwards, and this is it's not what the movies will show us when you talk about like romance, but one of the most powerful things that dating could do is if it ends positively or negatively, the date or the relationship, just taking a minute and looking back and reviewing it. What are the things that you didn't think you wanted in the person across the table? What are the things that you said? What parts of you did you learn about yourself in this process? In business deals, and how you treat your spouse and your children. God, these are all things that repeat itself. And the more you prepare before you engage in action, and the more you review after you engage in action, the more the time called action is just doing. Stop thinking, overthinking, thinking, overthinking. So I wanted to tell you about, and I know if I don't do it, my wonderful producer of the show, Andy Boltax, who's out there listening. I know he's going to remind me. He already did. He sent me a text this morning. If you remember last week, we spoke about a buddy of mine who got stopped in his tracks. And I want to give you a little bit more insight into the story. I asked him for more permission. You got a friend who's got a very difficult relationship with his father. His father left his family when they were little. It's complicated. I'm not going to get into it, obviously. And he always had this thing on his head of reconnecting to him. His father's never in his life. But as a guy getting older, he wanted to reconnect. And with this whole virus going on, his father had some health issues. He had this thing in his head that he was scared that he would just wake up one morning and his father may, he may not see him again. I don't want to get into the details. I spoke to his wife. His wife said, you got to go see your dad. Lives in an apartment somewhere, alone. He's older. This guy is in his late 40s, early 50s maybe. His father's much older. He has no relationship with him. And he just couldn't see him. But he had to. He had to for himself. He had to for his family. He had to. And he would never forgive himself if he didn't see his father, if for whatever reason this virus took him away from his father. So the first time we spoke, if you remember, he went there and he just couldn't walk in. He just couldn't do it. He turned around and came home. So I asked him what happened. He called me on, I think it was Thursday. I think it was Thursday night. And he said to me that he was talking to a rabbi of his who I know well. And his rabbi called him up at 2 o'clock. He called the rabbi. The rabbi said, I can't believe you didn't do it. You really should do it. It's okay. You got this. Don't worry about it. This guy's a tough guy on the outside. Let me tell you something. But even some of the biggest tough guys they're not such tough guys. It's one thing I've learned in business. Some of the biggest tough guys, they're teddy bears. They're teddy bears. Really. Some of the biggest teddy bears are tough guys. It's amazing how appearances are so misleading. So the rabbi calls him up, and he said at 2:00 in the afternoon on Thursday. And he said, go now. And he goes, what? He goes, now. He goes, what do you mean? Go now. He goes, now. Just get up and go to your father. Now. Now's the time. He goes, what do you mean? How am I going to go now? He goes, trust me. I did some prayer for you. Go. He goes, I'm in the middle of my work day. I got my kids. I got I'm on quarantine. He goes, go now. And he hangs the phone on him. And the guy's like, what do you mean, Rabbi? Go now. What is he talking about? What prayer did he do for me? Like, what's going on over here? And the guy's like, he called the rabbi to pick up the phone. He's like, just calling him to pick up the phone. And he's like, what did he do? Who knows? The guy's a religious guy. He's like, I don't know. See, he just said, he told me, he's like, he's in the middle of his day. He just gets up, he walks into his car, he just drives. He's like, I try to reach the rabbi. Rabbi's not calling him back. First, the rabbi said, go now. Maybe he sees something in heaven. I don't know. He's telling me. So he walks in, and as he walks in, he reaches the rabbi, and the rabbi says, I'm doing some kind of special thing. I'm praying at the afternoon service, and I'm going to be starting the afternoon service in an hour, and I want to include you in that prayer. So I expect you to get done, and just text me when you're on your way home. And the guy's literally like pulling up, and he's like, I got to get this done. I got to get back to him and text the rabbi. And he's like, and he walks up to that door that he couldn't go into beforehand. And this time he just didn't have the time. And he just, after a couple of seconds of self-doubt, he just rings the bell. His father opens the door. Social distancing. And he speaks to his dad for an hour. He said it's one of the most important moments in his life. I'll never have that regret again. He did it. You know why? Because this rabbi pretended like there's something going on, and he didn't give him a chance to think. We overthink things sometimes in life. And sometimes some of the greatest moments we have is when we knew it was right, and when it got towards the thing, we just did it. We just did it. There's a lot of things to do in life that we don't do because we overthink it. And let me tell you why we overthink it. There's a question we ask ourselves that is one of the most destructive questions that we can. One of the most destructive things we can ask ourselves is why? You ever find this happening to you? Why? Why am I like this? Why is this my relationship? Why did I have these parents or these bosses or these situations? How come really it's a why? How come I was born in this place or that place? How come my friend can do this with ease, but I can't? How come he has or she has, but I don't? Why? What? We tend, whenever we're in the middle of about to do something hard, the last effort that our comfortable, desirous brain that just wants to keep us stagnant and comfortable, what they tell. How come it was easy for him to do this? How come they can get married in the first second, but it's taking me a long time? Why am I like this for? I don't know why I'm like this for. How come I'm not stronger? How come I'm not braver? How come my mother can do this? How come my father can do this? How come my brother can do this? How come he... You know what we love asking ourselves? Is these philosophical questions of why. They're couched in like, no, if I figure out why, then I'll break it. As if that's how you break challenge. As if the way you get better in life is by trying to understand the underpinnings of yourself in the moment that you got to do something. As soon as you're about to take an action that's important, in your head, oh, why? And why? And what if? What if? Why is it hard for me? Why should I be like this for? And then we start playing the age game as if like there's like a time limit to becoming perfect. Because if you're under 20, then you can still work on yourself. But if you're over 40, then you have to have life all figured out. Why am I still doing this at 45? Why am I still doing this at 55? You know that I'm a grandmother? You know that I'm a grandfather? You know that I'm a father of X amount of kids? You know that I'm a rabbi? Why do I still have these issues? Asking why allows you to take the action that's in front of you, and instead of actually doing what's in front of you, just go down this philosophical rabbit hole into nowhere, into self-doubt, into self-guilt, into anger, into looking over at circumstances, into looking over at God and going, thanks so much for this life. Why do I have this thing in my head? Why am I so particular? Why do I struggle with this? When a person lives in that space of the philosophical why, and they allow that why to seep out of the times of thought into the times of action, they're guaranteeing to take whatever emotional capacity they have and to waste it. They're investing their emotional power into a philosophical downward spiral. And it comes across as if it's thoughtful. Why am I like this for? How come I don't have more? How come I've been trying so hard and it's not working for me? And this sounds so rational. It sounds so normal. Of course I would ask that. Aren't I trying to figure myself out? If you'd be trying to figure yourself out so badly, let me tell you, you'd be spending time in prep and in post. If someone was really that philosophical, he'd wake up in the morning with a pad or a notebook and he'd be really delving into the aspects of himself. If a person was really that philosophical, he would go to bed at night and an hour before he'd fall asleep, he would sit back and he would look at his day and he would take the action he did at 2 o'clock and he would ask, wait, if you're really philosophical, you don't stand at the doorstep to what you got to do today. And then at the doorstep, figure out, let me just ask why 100 times as opposed to actually barreling through the challenge in front of me. The questions of why do not belong during your day. I know I'm saying things that some people will be like, what are you talking? It doesn't belong into your day. The questions of why belong in your moments of thought. When I mean your day, I mean when you have your place of action. Stop asking why. This only question you ask during the period of called action is how. How do I get through that door? How do I make that phone call? How do I think through this issue? How do I pay my bills on time? How do I treat my spouse? How? Do I do it this way? Do it that way? It's practical. It's operational. It's just navigating trees. Picture your life as trying to walk barefoot through rocks. We had this when I went to camp when I was little. Back in the old days, they did things that they didn't do now. For those of you who went to camp in the 80s, I'll never forget this. I mean, my mom will go crazy when she hears this, but it's okay. Mommy, I know you're listening. When I was a little kid, I remember when I went to camp. We all went to camp when you were younger. So I remember I think every parent would go crazy listening to this. I remember when I was, when you're in camp, your counselors are you don't realize when you're little, when you're a kid, I don't know, you're 5th grade, 6th grade, whatever it is. You have counselors, but counselors, what are they, high school kids? Remember we had one counselor who was like a psychopath. And if you weren't in bed on time, the way he would punish you. Now camps have everyone's on top of each other, but 20 years ago, they let stuff slide. So I'll never forget, outside our bunks was rocks. Or right behind the bunks were rocks. Make sure rocks. Lots. So if you weren't in bed on time, he would walk in, and if you were up, you'd have to walk the rocks. So I kid you not, every night some kid had to navigate 50, 60 feet of rocks barefoot. And it'd rip you up. But who are you telling? There's no it was a different, and I'll never forget, you'd have to walk across the rocks. So the kids, we started to build this inner strategy of that rock, this, because how do you get through it in case you get punished? It's life. Navigating the rocks. You don't ask why when your feet are on rocks. You ask, how do I get through this? How do I push? I got to get across the rocks. How do I navigate the rocks? Makes you stronger. I love camp. I love going to camp. And even that afterwards, as crazy as that was, and that doesn't happen in today's day and age, still made you into a person. And the bunkmates, my bunkmates, every night someone was walking the rocks. You figured it out together. Open left, go right. Those rocks are smoother. You could jump this little path. There's some grass here, and then you hit the rocks. That's life. You can ask why before. You can ask why afterwards. But you know what you do during your day? You navigate the rocks. How do I get through this? How do I make this person feel better? How do I finish my day properly? How do I do that? How? How do I overcome my challenges? What techniques? What tactics? I'm in operations. When we start to understand ourselves, we start asking the right questions, we start bringing out the right levels of wisdom. And we start knowing how to grapple and navigate challenge properly. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. This week, we're going to try to hit a lot of these pieces, and maybe we can sort of wrap this up to some extent, because there's a lot of be do have coming up. There's a lot of be do have coming up this week. It's a lot of new, we got to figure out how to get there, and we're going to get there with God's help. The habits, how habits change your mind, how you become a person like this. But until then, try this today. Try today to spend a couple more minutes of your day just thinking through what's going to happen to the extent possible. And then tonight, try to take a couple minutes. That's the most important thing that I think we got to take from today. Try to take a couple minutes time before you go to bed. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If you can do it with a pen and paper, great. If not, just think. And go back to your day. And just sort of go through it slowly and ask yourself, like, how can I make that better? How can I make that better? Did I fail? Did I succeed at that? Could I have been better there? Just go through your day and see where you can enhance what you do. Get visibility in the world of thought. And if during the day you have something that hits you that's challenging, if you hear yourself asking like the why question, just put it to the side. We'll talk about it at night. Just, how do I get through that? Like how? Practically now. Start asking how. Because once you start asking how, you'll see that your brain is a lot more capable of navigating the rocks than you think. You push yourself in those worlds. You'd be surprised how resilient you are. Even for those that think you're not. You'd be surprised just how God made us. Although greatness is a choice, once you choose it, you'd be surprised just how much we've already been built, set up to achieve greatness. So hope you have a great day. Not just a great day, an awesome day. Make it an awesome day. Choose that it will be an awesome day. Thanks so much for the time and the attention, and with God's help, I just can't wait to speak to you tomorrow.